Here we go, Okie Diecast, coming to you from Oklahoma once more with another video showcasing a casting that me and my son collect together. Mostly me, but he's the one that got me started. Collecting Hot Wheels, that's another story by itself. But diecast cars do exist in Oklahoma, and we collect them. One of the castings that we collect, everybody who's been watching this channel knows that we're really into Ford GTs here at Okie Diecast, and that represents a large portion of our collection. And the Ford GTX1 casting from Hot Wheels is one of the castings that we collect, and this is going to be a really fun one for me because I love this casting. I love it. I can't tell you how much I love it. And there's lots of different reasons why it's significant to me, but we'll discuss that when we're going through them one at a time. Also have a couple here that have been recently purchased, or well, one of them has been recently purchased, but I had them on the cards. The white one on top was purchased from our local diecast meet a couple meets ago, and I've had it on the card thinking that I would keep it and try to find a loose one or another one on the card and compare the cards, but this card is just completely, the bottom corners on these cards are always what go first. From hanging on the pegs, from being dropped in the store, stored in boxes, the bottom corners is what you start with. And then from the bottom corners, you can inspect the rest of the card to see if it meets your satisfaction if you're a carded collector. But this one has some pretty special significance, and I'll just have to go over it later. But and then this one is a faster than ever red edition, or red base paint, red base color variation, faster than ever. I've had this on the card for the same reason, thinking I'd be able to find one with a better card, and I haven't done it yet. This is the only one. I need to make a video for you guys, all of my subscribers out there in YouTube land. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for watching these videos. I think they're pretty nice videos. I'm still learning how to present this type of information where it's not boring and I'm not monotone. Boy, I have to tell you, that's another subject altogether about being able to present and make it entertaining, but I won't go into that for this video. Let's just get going with these GTX ones. Okay. Ford GTX1. I can tell you guys that this is one of my favorite Hot Wheels casting of all time. And it was released by Hot Wheels in 2007. There were multiple color variations and wheel variations that year. Designed by Brian Benedict, who I actually had the pleasure of meeting at one of the Hot Wheels conventions in Sioux City, Iowa. This guy was really nice. He's a Mattel executive over the design of a lot of these little toy cars. He worked in the automobile industry for a while before he came to Mattel. Just a really nice guy. Talked with him quite a bit, and lo and behold, when I got back, I found out that he designed this casting. So if I would have known that, I probably would have carried a carded car up there and asked him to sign it or autograph it or something. I don't know. But anyway, designed by Brian Benedict. He hasn't designed very many Hot Wheels on his own, but this is one of them he did. I can tell you this yellow version, open hole 5 spokes, was the first one that was released 2007. They didn't do date codes back there, so back then there's some common variations to this thing. The yellow 5, or the white 5 spoke, the yellow open hole 5-spoke. When you see these things on the pegs, you see them with these wheels with the 5-spoke chrome for the white version. You see these guys. You see these guys a lot. I see these all the time, and believe me, I've watched and tracked them and looked at Hot Wheels shows, conventions, meets, digging through bins of old loose cars and everything. What you can't find on a regular basis is this guy, the white version with the open hole 5-spoke variation. They used to do, back in the day, it seems like they do a lot more wheel variations than they do now. And I understand that from a manufacturing aspect. You know, I used to work in manufacturing, and, you know, I believe this to be just inefficiencies in the plants. I don't think they really planned on this. I think they do run of castings, they do a run of the metal body, they do a run of the interior, and they do a run of the wheels, and sometimes they don't always match up exactly. So you don't want to scrap, you don't want to waste. You're there on the line, you have this stuff staged, and so sometimes they just go together to get rid of existing runs and stock. So I think that was the main reason for all these variations back in the day. Now, somebody, if you know, that's in the know, might be able to correct me, but I think it was mainly just due to the manufacturing process. But this car, I knew about its existence for many, many years, and probably about 8 or 9 years, ever since I've been collecting this casting. And I didn't come across one that I could acquire until just recently, maybe even last year, maybe up in January, and I finally found this guy. And I bought it for $1 off of a vendor at a show. And that just leads me to talk about, you know, what makes this hobby fun. You know, for me, it's not, this is one of my favorite casting, and it hasn't been that it's my favorite car. It's just something, it's been because it was something I decided to collect and retroactively collect. And you can get them relatively cheaply, inexpensively. It's fun to hunt for those rare wheel variations and the rare variations from back in the day. Everybody knows about, or maybe you don't, but the people that do collect variations, they know what I'm talking about when I speak to the enjoyment of trying to come by these variations. This blue one, the open hole 5-spoke, was a common variation. Another variation was the PR5s, that was also very, very common. Usually when you find the blue GTXs, they're either in the 5-spoke, open hole, or the PR5. But there is another rare variation that I had looked for forever, for years and years and years, and that's the 5-spoke, the chrome 5-spokes. You won't find this thing, you won't see this thing very often. It was another rare wheel variation, and I just come across this thing just recently on none other than eBay. It was on an auction, and I think some people knew about it, that it was a wheel variation, but maybe they didn't place the same value on it. That I think I got this thing for $7.50 on eBay. But that was the first one that I had seen in 8 years. The first one that I had even put my eyes on. So you can collect all the hot, you know, cars nowadays that are coming out. You can spend lots of money, you know, Mini GT. There's people that collect Johnny Lightning. There's people that collect Super Treasure Hunts. But for me, this casting has absolutely been the most enjoyable to collect, just because of that hard to find, hard to track down one. And when you find it, it's cheap, and you can add it to your collection. It's just been really, really fun. I don't collect for resale. I don't collect for value for these models to retain value. I just collect the stuff that I think brings me the most enjoyment just collecting. This is the following year in 2008 they came out with the satin black. 2008. And also, the way I keep track of the date codes is with the GTX, and I'll explain it later. Gold interior, satin finish with the open hole gold 5 spokes. This one actually had another variation that year. These are equally common. You don't really have a problem finding either of these when you're looking for the GTX. This is in the regular 5-spoke gold. This is how I keep track of the date code, because I know 2007, 2008 for the satin black, 2009 the following year, and this guy is A50. So 2009 is A on the date code. This was I believe this was a mystery car that was in the old black blistered mystery cards. A little bit different deco than what had been previously seen. This was in 2009, 2010 were the speed machines, the original speed machines. The speed machines just came out in on the pegs again here recently with the 6 car culture set, but the original speed machines was back in 2010, and there were 2 color variations of the GTX. First one was that orange one. The second one was this gold, kind of a pale gold, yellowish gold. And I really like this one because the co-mold wheels are blacked out, so it looks a lot more sinister than the orange one. Also in 2010, we got 2 treasure hunts. A super treasure hunt. So cool that they did a super treasure hunt of the GTX back in the day. Doesn't that look beautiful with that Spectre Flame paint, the chrome 5-spoke rims, and the chrome interior? That is a beautiful casting. And what are the odds that they would do a super treasure hunt in the GTX nowadays? The bad thing about the GTX, and it's kind of sad, this one, the super treasure hunt, is because of the rubber wheels. It doesn't roll that well. I think that it rubs on the fenders with these rubber tires. It doesn't roll that well, and it's kind of sad because this GTX, and we'll talk about it when we get to the faster than ever cars, is really fast. It's a fast downhill car. This was a regular treasure hunt release of that same year. The date codes on the bottom of these cars tell me that the super treasure hunt came out before, or slightly before, probably at the same time, but the date codes, the super treasure hunt came out first, was manufactured first, and then the regular treasure hunt. And if you want to see some contrast, you can definitely see the change in the paint color for the 2. This is a super treasure hunt you can get relatively cheaply. I don't think these things command the same value as some of the other super treasure hunts. Following year, 2011, there was a Clover car. I guess they used to release the Clover cars around St. Patty's Day. That is my guess. Another interesting color, a pale green with a gold interior, gold PR5s. Every one of these cars just look real good to me. My vote for the best interior came in 2012 in the Hot Wheels Boulevard release. This is a metal chassis. This was the first metal chassis real rider, like a full premium release of the GTX. There hasn't been very many of them. In fact, this may be the only what I would call a full premium metal base, metal body, real riders. And I love this car because of the interior. It's got this kind of gunmetal colored interior. And it rolls okay. There's just something about that Super Treasure Hunt Real Riders that won't roll. Okay, then in 2012, we got the faster than ever versions. And that brings me to the downhill track. These GTXs on the downhill track are really fast cars, especially in this FTE versions. The wheels, they have those FTE axles and the wheels are so big, and I guess the weight is really balanced. It's kind of a wide and low Hot Wheel. And we do downhill racing, and I have started buying up these. I buy these FTE versions whenever I can because they make just such great track cars. This was the regular FTE version, and you can see the gold Trap 5 or the gold FTE wheels. Okay, here we go with another variation. This car came out in the same year, slightly later. You can see the difference. It's got a silver Trap 5 instead of a gold Trap 5. And this is because the silver is not an FTE. It's a regular Hot Wheel. It's a regular axle. And it was found in a multi-pack, supposedly. This was another one. I hunted forever for this thing and finally found it. And I found it on eBay as a loose car, and I got it relatively cheaply. I looked for this thing forever. I hadn't even seen a picture of this thing on the internet or anything. So when I talk about enjoying collecting, I've been able to acquire some of these cars that were just so rare, and I look for them. And why are they rare? Maybe because it was a multi-pack car. The multi-pack cars are hard to find. Historically, carded versions are harder to find than the multi-packs if the multi-packs come and go, because they're made in lesser quantities, and multi-packs were bought to open for kids to play with. A lot of them ended up, this is just me postulating on why they're more rare or harder to find, because kids opened them up and they played with them. This was the red color variant that I just opened of the Ford GTX with the FTE wheels, and this one is the lesser available or lesser found paint variations. You'll find more of the white FTE version than you will the red for whatever reason, but it's still pretty easily found. After that, in 2013, there was a rash, and when I say rash, I mean there was 3 multi-pack exclusives. This was the only one that I have. There's also a kind of pale blue, almost like a seafoam color, and a green color multi-pack exclusive that I haven't been able to acquire yet. I've seen them, but they've just been too expensive for this car. After that, in 2014, it continued in the multi-pack exclusive in a purple, and it also had a windshield variant. One's tinted and one is clear. Same rim, same everything. Another variant. I just love this GTX for all of the variants that it offers you to be able to hunt down and collect cheaply. There has not been a Hot Wheels casting that has been as satisfying to collect for me as this Ford GTX. Just because of the variants, because it's a fast track car. This thing, in 2014, this came from a crazy set with these high-speed wheels. You can look at these wheels. They're real thin in the front. They're kind of thin in the back. They've got some kind of honeycomb construction to them. This crazy wild deco. A metal base, which makes it really heavy. This car is extremely fast down the downhill track. And it is also extremely hard to find. I found this thing at a Kohl's way back, I guess when it was still hanging on the pegs in 2014. I don't see very many of these things in existence. There was some that came through eBay because I watch for them, and there's been some on the cards, and a carded version of this thing, the last price that I saw, it sold for $500. $500 for this GTX casting. It's insane. And I don't have a carded version of these. I usually try to do carded versions and loose versions of all the car castings that we collect. I haven't been able to acquire a carded version of this car yet. Just super rare. They did not make very many of them. I don't know if they ended up going to different countries. Just a wild deco on this thing. The red windshield, the crazy tires, the crazy deco makes this an extremely rare version. And I wish I could find it carded, but I'm not going to pay $500 for it. But anyway, that's all of them. I'll get them off the turntable. We'll look at them on the parking garage, and then we'll close it out. Okay, here we are, guys. There they all are in the parking lot. All lined up. Nice and beautiful. Ford GTX1s, or just a Ford GTX for short. And I just want to reiterate, if you really want to have some enjoyment, a different kind of enjoyment with Hot Wheels, find a casting that's not a Nissan Skyline or a Bel Air Gasser that's going to be cheap, that's going to be easy for you to collect. My guess is you're going to have just as much enjoyment as finding these rare cars. And I didn't even mention this red one, supposedly, and I've seen a picture of it, there is an open hole 5-spoke version of this car that was sold in a multi-pack. And I've seen a picture of it, but that is my next big thing I'm looking for in the GTX. If I can find and acquire the red in an open hole 5-spoke, I think I'll have this almost complete. But I'm still always on the hunt for that rare variation. And when you do come to find it, it is extremely satisfying. And what makes this car really great is that I've met the designer in person. He's a super nice guy. This is an exceptionally fast car down the track, and it is an absolutely stunning model. The last one they made was in 2014. Boy, it would really send me through the roof if they were to start re-releasing the Ford GTX. Don't know if it'll ever happen. This was the last one I know of that they produced, and that was back in 2014. If you're listening, Mattel, let's get this one going back again. Alright guys, I hope you have enjoyed and watched this video and have enjoyed it. I certainly have enjoyed it, making it. Until next time, have fun.